On April 17, 1961, the United States government helped around 1,400 Cuban exiles launch an invasion on the south shore of the island of Cuba known as the Bay of Pigs invasion. A left-wing revolution that took place in Cuba throughout the late 50s ended in 1959 with former President Fulgencio Batista being trumped by Cuba's new leader, Premier Fidel Castro. As soon as Premier Castro took power and set up his new communist style of government, ties with the United States were severed completely. These ties with the U.S. over the last couple decades have become very strong for Cuba. After severing ties with the United States, Fidel Castro began to set up his new strong ties with the Soviet Union. These new ties between Cuba and the Soviet Union made the United States government very worried, especially because of the proximity of Cuba to the United States. The U.S. government thought of many dangerous possibilities of the Soviet Union having an ally or territory so close to the shores of the United States. Cuba is now becoming a major factor in the ever-evolving Cold War. The United States knew they had to try and do something to quickly end Castro's new government. In March of 1960, President Eisenhower ordered the Central Intelligence Agency, also known as the CIA, to come up with a plan that would end Fidel Castro's regime. The CIA came up with a plan that would have United States personnel train a large group of exiled revolutionary Cubans that would invade Cuba and end Castro's rule. The training of these revolutionary soldiers would take place at Guantanamo Bay, a U.S. naval base on the eastern end of the island of Cuba. The invasion group was named Brigade 2506. While the government tried all it could to keep the training and invasion quiet, word spread rather quickly and the news began reporting on it. After his inauguration in January 1961, President John F. Kennedy was briefed on the invasion plan and, after discussing it with his advisors, approved the invasion. One of the main things President Kennedy wanted out of this plan was to hide any United States involvement. He thought the site of the Bay of Pigs on the south side of the island would help with this. So the plan was to have 2 major airstrikes on Cuban Navy bases and then insert the 1,400-man invasion. There were other smaller parts of the plan, but the main objective was the bombings and the 1,000-man invasion to reach Castro and stop his rule. The plan started going bad from the very beginning. The first airstrike was ordered on April 15, 1961. It was to be carried out by World War II bombers painted and disguised as Cuban military aircraft. The bombings ended up missing many of their targets, and word quickly spread of the United States' involvement of their planes. This forced President Kennedy to cancel the second bombings. On April 17, 1961, the Bay of Pigs invasion was launched. The invasion force was immediately met with an opposing Cuban force. Cuban planes sank 2 escort ships and destroyed much of the air support. Not only were Cuban forces halting the invasion force was trekking through swampy and rough land conditions. On the next day or so, Fidel Castro ordered 20,000 troops to advance to the southern beach and keep up the pressure on both the air and the ground. In the end, some of the invasion group escaped to the sea, while over 100 men died and over 1,200 were taken as prisoners by Castro's men. The Bay of Pigs invasion ended up being a huge failure and major embarrassment for the United States of America. Cuba and the United States to this day still have a very strained relationship, and Fidel Castro still rules in Cuba. Thank you.